Pikmin 3, or more specifically, Pikmin 3 Deluxe. I'm playing the Switch version here, and this is also my first time playing Pikmin 3. And this game right here, let me tell you, this is it. This is the Pikmin game. After I played Pikmin 1, I was like, that was really fun, that was really good, I really enjoyed that. But I want to see that formula expanded and fleshed out into more of a full game, and Pikmin 2 let me down on that front. It was busy just being a different game entirely, but Pikmin 3 goes back to the original Pikmin 1 formula, and it does everything I could possibly want with a Pikmin game. I'm recording this audio literally the day before Pikmin 4 comes out, so I can't compare it to that game, but as of right now, Pikmin 3 is undoubtedly my favorite Pikmin game. It's not perfect, it does still have some problems, and I will talk about those, but for now, I just want to talk about why this game is so awesome. So first of all, structurally, as I said, we are going back to Pikmin 1 style. There are no more caves in Pikmin 3, and I am eternally grateful for that. We are back to having just a bunch of maps with various things strewn about, and you just have to collect all of the things exactly the way I want it. This time around, we're collecting fruit, and the fruit plays into the limited days system of Pikmin in a kind of interesting way. I'll talk about it a little bit later on. But for now, I really want to focus on the core gameplay improvements made to Pikmin 3, because there are a lot of them. First, I want to talk about the small stuff, the quality of life improvements and things like that, but actually first would be technically not an improvement because Pikmin 3 Deluxe came out before the remasters of 1 and 2, but the controls, specifically the gyro controls for the cursor now, are exactly what I wanted them to be in Pikmin 1 and 2. Now you can have the gyro function as the pointer 100% of the time. You don't have that weird, like, sometimes it's controlled with the stick, sometimes it's controlled with gyro. Now it's just gyro all the time, and that makes it so much easier to use, so much more accurate. Still nowhere near as accurate as using an IR pointer, but it definitely gets the job done. It will, like, drift off very frequently, but there's a recenter button that you can just use to get it back into position, and that makes it a total non-issue. I mean, I do use the recenter button, like, constantly, but I don't really find that an issue, you know? If the pointer's not where you want it to be, recenter. Super easy, doesn't cause any problems. Though, one thing I did notice, and this might have been a thing in the first two Pikmin games as well, is that when you're using the gyro to control the cursor, rumble actually messes that up and causes the cursor to start, like, jittering and going all over the place. So I actually ended up turning off rumble for playing through Pikmin 3, which made for a much smoother experience. Don't know if that's just because I'm using a third-party controller and maybe the gyroscope's not as good as official Switch controllers, but whatever, I didn't get to play with rumble, not exactly a huge issue. Another thing they've added to Pikmin 3, or maybe this was added in Deluxe, I don't know, I didn't play the original version of 3. They have added a lock-on function, which I'm kind of two minds about. On one hand, it's very nice and very convenient that you don't have to manually aim when you're, like, trying to fight enemies and dodge attacks at the same time while still being able to throw Pikmin. But at the same time, that kind of is the gameplay of Pikmin, you know? Like, throwing stuff, like, there was accuracy to it. Like, with the smaller enemies, you can throw a Pikmin, and if it lands right on top of them, it'll instantly take them out, and that's cool. But now with the lock-on, you can just, like, do that for free, so it kind of removes some aspects of Pikmin, which is a little weird. But at the same time, it also kind of lets you focus more on other things, so you don't have to worry about that as much, so I don't know how I feel about it. I like it, but I also feel like maybe it's taken away a little bit from Pikmin. I don't know. I will say, I didn't use the lock-on all the time, because when you're locked onto an enemy, you can't whistle to recall your Pikmin. So first you have to unlock, and then you can whistle again, which creates a little bit of, like, awkwardness. So sometimes I would opt to fight enemies without using the lock-on, despite it being there. So I guess it's not too intrusive in the game. You can just not play with it if you'd rather do everything manually, and sometimes that could actually even be the beneficial thing to do. Another big change I quickly noticed with Pikmin 3 that I could see some people not really liking is how well Pikmin follow you this time around. In Pikmin 1 and 2, the Pikmin would follow you in this big, wide mass that would follow a good, decent distance behind you, and each Pikmin would kinda be doing their own thing a little bit, and they had these little, like, quirks. They could trip on stuff, and they would have to, like, get caught up around corners, and sometimes you'd have to, like, steer them around and things. And sometimes you would also have to, like, control the groups so that way, like, they wouldn't widen out too much so they could go over, like, narrow bridges and they wouldn't fall off and things like that. And it was very finicky and kind of annoying, but it's also, like, kind of part of playing Pikmin, because you got this army of 100 idiots and you gotta, you know, control them around and stuff. But with Pikmin 3 now, the Pikmin follow you in a very compact, tight formation, and you basically don't have to think about them at all when you're just traveling around. And when it comes to combat, keeping your Pikmin out of danger is much, much easier thanks to this, because in Pikmin 1 and 2, that big wide formation could leave a lot of Pikmin open to certain enemy attacks. Now, it's really not much of an issue at all, so that's something where it's nice, it's convenient. I certainly noticed that I wasn't having to go, God damn it, fucking get around the corner and all that annoying shit from the first two games. But, you know, that was kind of one of the quirks of Pikmin. That was kind of cute, and you liked it a little bit, but it was also annoying, so, I personally think overall it's a net benefit to the game, because it lets me focus more on the multitasking and the strategy, so I do like that. Though one trade-off to this is now all of the Pikmin can keep up with you no problem, which means Pikmin getting flowers is really kind of irrelevant. I mean, it does speed up the rate at which they carry things back to the base, so that's still useful. But one of the main benefits of the flowers in the first two games was that they'd be able to follow you around better, and now that's really not a thing. These are the kinds of things that I could definitely see being interpreted in different ways by different people. Some people might say that this is making Pikmin too casual and too easy and removing a lot of the depth of Pikmin. But at the same time, you could also look at this as streamlining Pikmin and removing a lot of the tedious, annoying parts of it. So, you know, personally, I stand on the side of I think these things are more beneficial to the Pikmin formula than harmful, especially considering a lot of the other new things that they've added that I'll get to in a bit. Other nice little things that they've streamlined, you now have just one singular onion for all of your different Pikmin types, rather than having multiple different onions that you need to go to. This is just so much faster and so much easier. You just go to the onion and select all the numbers of Pikmin types you want all at once, and they also come out of the onion basically instantly, so you don't have to wait around for them to all get on the field so you can start playing the video game, which I think is really, really nice. They've also made the map way, way better than it was in the first two games. This thing is super useful now. I check the map constantly in Pikmin 3 for a number of different reasons, and I think it's super great. It's perfect for helping you strategize and think about what you want to do. And this is one of those things where you can definitely see the Wii U gameness coming through in this game's DNA. You know, the big emphasis on using the map as it would have been on the Wii U gamepad makes perfect sense, and even without the Wii U gamepad, I still think this extra focus on the map is really, really useful. I also like having the mini-map there in the corner when I'm playing, so I don't always have to stop and pause the game to see. Also, they did the exact thing I talked about in my Pikmin 2 video when it comes to selecting your different Pikmin types and accidentally throwing the wrong ones. That is a thing of the past. The Pikmin that you throw is no longer determined by which Pikmin are physically closest to your character. That doesn't matter at all anymore. You can watch when you're throwing Pikmin and they'll just teleport into your hand. So now the only Pikmin that you're going to be throwing are the Pikmin types you've selected, which is how it should have always been from the beginning. Now you don't have to deal with all that awkward, annoying fumbling, and that is fucking fantastic. Another nice change that they've made is when you dismiss all of your Pikmin groups, in the previous Pikmin games, that would dismiss absolutely everything, and then you'd have to, like, whistle to, like, grab all of your red Pikmin so you could take them off to go do something. And sometimes that could create awkwardness where you'd accidentally whistle too big or slightly off aim, and then you'd accidentally grab your blues, and then you'd have to re-dismiss everything and re-grab your reds. This time around in Pikmin 3, when you dismiss, you will dismiss everything except for the Pikmin type that you currently have selected. So if you've got all your Pikmin with you and you're about to go in water, you just select your blues, dismiss, and now you can just go forward without having to fiddle with anything whatsoever. It is so nice. Another great refinement they've added is in the form of trying to recall idle Pikmin amidst a group of productive Pikmin. This is a thing that would sometimes happen where you throw too many Pikmin at something and then, you know, the leftovers are kind of just standing there. and you would try to whistle to them and to get them back, but then the whistle would affect the other Pikmin that were carrying the thing, and they drop it, come back to you, and then you gotta throw them back on it, and you're just wasting time doing that. Now, in Pikmin 3, they've made it so that if a Pikmin is busy doing something, if you whistle at them just for a brief second, all they're going to do is pause for a second, and then they'll go back to doing what they were doing. And you have to either double whistle or do an extended whistle, and that will cause them to stop doing what they're doing and start following you, which is so handy for just grabbing all the loose Pikmin in a populated area without having to disturb everyone. Probably one of the nicest quality of life features they've added with Pikmin 3. All of these things alone make Pikmin 3 so much better to play than Pikmin's 1 or 2, and it doesn't even stop there, because there's also all of the new things that they've added to the Pikmin formula here in 3. First of all, charging. This move is a huge game changer. This replaces the swarm feature that was in Pikmin's 1 and 2. In those games, you could control your army all in kind of one mass, and they would automatically, like, attack enemies or grab stuff if they just ran into anything. And that was generally pretty useful for just, like, swarming enemies and ganging up on them, or just having a bunch of Pikmin just grab stuff without having to individually throw every single Pikmin. But it was very loose and hard to use with precision, because just whatever Pikmin touched the thing would end up interacting with it. So oftentimes when you tried to swarm stuff to pick it up, you'd have way more Pikmin on it than you wanted to, and you really had no control of the Pikmin types that would be grabbing things. And this is where the charge move comes in and improves this system, because now when you're locked onto something, or you just have it highlighted with your cursor, you can press a button, and that will instantly send all of your Pikmin of your currently selected type to go interact with that thing, either to attack an enemy or to grab something. And what's so great about this, specifically for grabbing things, is that only the exact number of Pikmin needed to pick up that thing will grab that thing, and all the other ones will just run right back to you, which is so fantastic. Now, if there's a whole bunch of spoils on the ground, you don't have to fiddle around with trying to swarm it or trying to throw each individual Pikmin and sorting out all your different types to make sure all the different colors get their spoils and everything. Now you can just swarm all the things super quickly, and it is a breeze. It is so good. But I think my favorite thing that they've done with Pikmin 3 is how they have overhauled the multiple captains system that was introduced in Pikmin 2. Because first of all, you now have 3 captains instead of 2, allowing for even more multitasking and doing things simultaneously at different parts of the map. But even more than that, they have done a lot of really cool stuff to expand the possibilities when playing with multiple captains, because for one, now you can actually select captains as things to throw, which opens up the possibility of using your captains in tandem with each other. You can have areas that a captain cannot get to themselves individually, but another captain can throw them there. And then you can throw over a couple of Pikmin, and now you can split your 2 captains up in entirely isolated areas. This also makes it a lot easier to leave one of your captains in a certain area. If you're traveling with a group of them, you can just toss them where you want them to be and then just leave them and come back to them later. Also, another really nice thing about captains this time around is that they will automatically pluck Pikmin out of the ground if there are any nearby. So you could just, like, leave a captain back at the onion, and as your Pikmin are bringing spoils back and spawning new Pikmin, they'll just automatically get everyone ready. So when you switch over to that captain, you already have an army ready to go. But the biggest thing that they've added is the Go Here function. This is so awesome and is the best use of the map that they've added in Pikmin 3. Whenever you're playing as a captain, you can go to the map and just click on a point on the map, and the captain will just automatically go to that location. And while they're doing that, you can switch to one of your other captains, and this just expands the ability to multitask so insanely in Pikmin 3. In Pikmin 2, having multiple captains was nice, but you still did have to control everything manually yourself in real time, which did limit the possibilities of what you could do to multitask, but now you can do so much more. you can spawn right into the level and have one of your captains grab a bunch of blue Pikmin, and then you can use the go here function to send them over to the water. While they're making their way over there, you go to one of your other captains, you grab some other Pikmin, you send them off to another area. Then you can do the same thing with your third captain, but now you manually control them as you start taking out enemies or solving puzzles or whatever, and then you get a notification, hey, I've arrived at the destination, and then you can take your current captain, have them send all their Pikmin to start breaking down a wall, swap over to the other captain, and you're already at the destination you wanted to be at. So now you can start taking out these enemies, you can start looking for collectibles and stuff. Meanwhile, your other captain gets to their destination, you can have them start working on things. Oh, and your first captain, they're done with what they were doing, so you can have them go back to the onion, and then they can start plucking Pikmin from everything that's being sent back. Go back to your other captain, have them finish their puzzle, and now they're out of Pikmin, so have them go back to the onion, they'll go grab some more Pikmin. All of this is being done completely automatically, simultaneously in real time. You just have to tell your captains what to do, and they'll do it. All that you are manually controlling is the fun stuff, the combat, the puzzles, the exploration. But if it's just the busy work of having to go from here and there, that is now something that you don't have to think about whatsoever. And it now opens up even more possibilities for optimization and efficiency. It is stupendous. It is glorious. I love it, love it, love it. It is so much goddamn fun. This is the kind of gameplay I come to Pikmin for, and Pikmin 3 does it so well, so much better than the previous two games. I'm not a super experienced Pikmin player or anything. I've only played 1 and 2 twice, and this is my first time playing Pikmin 3, but I feel like Pikmin 3 probably has the highest skill ceiling of any of the Pikmin games when it comes to the optimization and time management aspects, which, if you ask me, is the best part of Pikmin, and I am completely over the moon with all of the possibilities here. Of course, we also have our 2 new Pikmin types here for Pikmin 3. Purples and whites from 2 have been removed, which makes sense because you only found those Pikmin in caves. But also, just from a practical perspective, having 7 different types of Pikmin would be a lot to manage, so I think they were smart at just capping it out at 5. And I like the 2 new Pikmin types. First, we have Rock Pikmin, which kind of take on the role of what Purple Pikmin were in Pikmin 2. These are your combat Pikmin that are even more combat-oriented than Red Pikmin. You can throw Rock Pikmin at enemies, and it will do a big chunk of damage to them. They can't stun enemies like Purple Pikmin could, but I honestly think that's fine, because the stunning shit was ridiculously overpowered in Pikmin 2. And also, a thing I like about Rock Pikmin is that they fight physically differently than other Pikmin types. Other Pikmin will grab onto enemies and they'll, like, repeatedly beat on them, but Rock Pikmin will just fling themselves at the enemy, which means that you actually engage with enemies differently when fighting with Rock Pikmin versus any other Pikmin type, because with these guys, you don't just throw them and forget them, they just bounce off the enemy after dealing damage, so you want to constantly be re-grabbing them and re-throwing them the whole time, and charging, I think, doesn't do as much damage as manually throwing them, so they actually change the way you fight enemies, which is really great. Additionally, Rock Pikmin can also be used to break down glass things, which is obviously a type of barricade that allows them to access areas other Pikmin can't. You always gotta have that kind of thing. And then, of course, we have the Wing Pikmin, or Pink Pikmin, as I often refer to them. And of course, the thing with these Pikmin is that they can fly, which is extremely useful for various different things. First of all, Pink Pikmin are the only other type of Pikmin besides blues that can go through water, because they just fly over the surface of it, which is interesting because they can go over water, but they still can't do things in water. They still can't fight enemies that are under the water or grab treasure that's under the water, but they can just pass through it and get to land on the other side, which is a neat little quirk. But obviously, with their ability to fly, Pink Pikmin can get to things that no other Pikmin type can get to whatsoever. And what's also interesting is because they can fly, they can also avoid many hazards that other Pikmin have to deal with, and in fact, they can take entirely different routes when taking things back to the main base. Where other Pikmin might have to go around walls and stuff, Pink Pikmin can just go right over these things and get stuff back to base much, much faster, which is cool. And a cool thing they've added to counteract the incredible efficiency offered by pink Pikmin are these new spider-like enemies that have these webs set up, which are completely harmless to most Pikmin types, but they're set up in a lot of areas where the paths that pink Pikmin take when trying to fly around to return stuff back to base, they might end up getting caught up in that web and getting killed, so you gotta clear those out before you can start sending your pink Pikmin out to do stuff, which is really cool. There are also these special types of doors that only pink Pikmin can open, and they have to stay on those things, lifting them up to keep them open, which means you're going to have access to less pink Pikmin if you want to keep that door open. Pinks are also much better at handling flying enemies than any other enemy type because you don't just kind of throw them and hope that the trajectory of your throw arc will land the Pikmin on them. You can lock onto airborne enemies and charge them with your pinks, and they'll all fly right to the thing and start attacking them, which is great. But pink Pikmin do less damage than other Pikmin types, so they're not generally great for combat overall. In fact, when you throw them on the weaker enemies, they don't have the effect where they can instantly take them out. So they're things that you don't really want to have them fighting that much, but they're also very good for a lot of other things, and some things they fight better than anyone else, even if they're still not great fighters. I gotta say, pink Pikmin are probably my favorite Pikmin type just because of how versatile and creative their uses are. They really came up with every single possible thing you could do with the concept of a flying Pikmin. I think these are really awesome. Let's see, what else do I love about Pikmin 3? There's just so much, I can't even remember all of it. Oh, how about the progression of the game? I talked about this in my Pikmin 1 video, how I wish that game had more of a progression system to it, but the game was just so short that you really didn't have the possibility for that. Pikmin 2 did a little bit more of that, but I don't like Pikmin 2, so I don't care. Pikmin 3, however, this is what I'm talking about. Pikmin 3, first of all, is much longer than Pikmin 1. It took me about 8 hours to beat the main campaign, and because of that longer playtime, the game is able to dole things out a little bit more. Plus, there's way more things in the game for it to dole out. So, for example, when you first start playing, you just have the one captain and the one Pikmin type, and then you get more Pikmin types, and you get access to your second captain. Then you get a little bit further, you get your third captain, and you get more Pikmin types as you keep playing. It took me about, like, 5 hours, I think, before I had everything that the game had to offer, which I really appreciated. You know, early on, there's lots of stuff that you see that you just can't interact with yet, and it takes a while before you can start going back to areas and start cleaning things up. Unfortunately, I don't have any footage of any of this because my first recording when I was playing through this game messed up, and so I don't have any footage from my first session, which was like 5.5 hours of gameplay. So that's a bit annoying, but just take my word for it that this game does a much better job with its progression and unlocking more and more options as you get further into the game. Oh yeah, another thing I want to mention, something that I've kind of neglected to talk about in my Pikmin videos so far are the puzzles of the Pikmin games. Because there are some, like, actual dedicated puzzles that you have to do sometimes, coordinating different Pikmin types to get them in certain arrangements so that way you can interact with stuff in certain ways, or using, like, different counterweight systems to get a captain and a bunch of Pikmin up to a higher area so they can reach a collectible or something like that. And Pikmin 3 has more of these puzzles than any of the previous Pikmin games, and I think they're more interesting than any of the previous Pikmin games. So that's just another notch on Pikmin 3's belt on why it's the best Pikmin game so far. And something that they've added to Pikmin 3 Deluxe are these side stories, a series of missions that you get to play as Olimar and Louie both before and after the events of Pikmin 3. And these are basically just some extra Pikmin 3 you get to play. They take the existing levels of Pikmin 3 and they remix them in various ways, and they give you specific challenges that you have to complete. It's not just your typical collecting a bunch of stuff before time runs out. These don't work on like an overall larger scale of limited time. They're individual missions that you have to complete. The structure here is very much taken from the game's mission mode, which I'll talk about in a bit. But these are kind of cool. They feel like this game's Pikmin 2, you know, taking the maps from the main campaign and now you're reusing them, but you're severely mixing them up, sometimes removing water from areas that had water, so now it's all flat ground, adding new enemies, adding new obstacles, giving you different Pikmins that you have access to for certain missions and such. They're pretty fun. Not as good as the main campaign, but still definitely worth playing, and they add a good chunk of extra hours to the playtime, so I definitely will take it. I know some people take issue with how Louis has been characterized in Pikmin 3, that he's been turned into character who eats things, which is always kind of an annoying, stupid trope. But to be honest, I really don't give a shit about the story or characters of Pikmin that much, so I really don't care. So yeah, overall, I have nothing but praise to heap on Pikmin 3. I love this game. I think it is super fun, better than the previous two Pikmin games by a country mile, but it does have some problems. Really, mainly one problem. There's like one small thing, which is just that you have a lot of shit to manage in this game with all the stuff you can throw, because you have your 5 Pikmin types, plus bomb carriers sometimes, plus your captains. And the captains specifically can get very annoying when you're trying to fight enemies and they show up in the rotation and then you, like, don't end up charging, or you throw your captain when you mean to be throwing Pikmin. That's a little bit annoying. I wish the captains were, like, on a separate thing so they weren't included in your Pikmin rotation, but really that's the only, like, minor hiccup in the entirety of Pikmin 3. The major problem, however, is in the difficulty, because Pikmin 3 is fucking easy. And, you know, a lot of people don't like it when you criticize games for being easy. You know, these are games for kids. Games don't have to be hard to be fun. And yes, that is definitely true. But Pikmin 3 kind of pushes that a little bit too far. This game is ridiculously easy. You know, I criticized Pikmin 1 for the 30 days being an obscene amount of time to complete the game. Well, Pikmin 3 makes that look like the strictest time limit in the world by comparison, because here's where we get to the fruit of Pikmin 3. On paper, in theory, I think this is a really cool idea. Pikmin 3 does have a limited number of days to complete the game, but it's not a set limited number. You have a number of days based on how much food your characters have to survive, and they live off of fruit juice. So as you collect the fruit in the game, you get more juice, meaning more days to survive. And on paper, I love this system, because at the beginning of the game, you only have 3 days worth of juice, so it's like, oh god, we gotta get some supplies, we gotta collect that fruit so that way we can make it to the end of the game. That's really, really cool. But you get such an insane amount of juice from the fruit in this game that almost immediately it just completely stops being a factor. In fact, it kind of starts to get, like, ironically hilarious when you get to the end of the day and your characters drink their juice and they're like, oh, thank God, we have a little bit of juice to last us. And it's like, bro, I have juice to last us for fucking months. What are you talking about? Like, this is exactly the stuff I was talking about in Pikmin 1, so much worse, with them trying to make the game kid-friendly and accessible, so they're really holding back and squandering the potential of the game's design. This whole system of acquiring more days by getting fruit, there's so much potential here for adding some serious tension to the game, but it all just falls flat because the system immediately just makes itself worthless. Why even bother implementing something like this when you're just gonna make it a non-factor from a practical standpoint? I beat Pikmin 3 in 26 days collecting all of the fruit, and I had 74 days of juice left by the end of it. Like, are you fucking kidding me? I can't imagine there's a single person on planet Earth that has ever run out of days in Pikmin 3. Come the fuck on, dude. You can be a little more demanding than not at all, even for a kid's game. In fact, Pikmin 3, that would have been the perfect place for the Pikmin 1 30-day timer. You know, a first-timer like me, I beat it in 26 days. I feel like that's pretty good, leaves a healthy amount of wiggle room for less skilled players, but adds some real time pressure. Just readjust the amount of juice you get from the fruit, so instead of a total of 100 days worth, you get 30, just like the first Pikmin game, and I think this whole thing would have been alleviated. Quite unfortunate that once again they decide to squander this system in the name of accessibility, and what's extra unfortunate is that in Pikmin 3 Deluxe they did add difficulty modes, and I played the game on hard mode my first time through because I assumed that the game would be really super easy, and I certainly would not say that the game was any kind of hard playing through it. And now that I've beaten hard mode, there is the ultra spicy mode, and I do want to try that to see if maybe that will offer the challenge I'm looking for. But you would really have to ramp things up to make this game any degree of challenging, and I highly doubt they did that, so I'm not expecting too much from ultra spicy mode, but I do still want to try it. And it's not just the timer that's way more forgiving in this game. I've also noticed that the enemies and general hazards are way tuned down from the previous Pikmin games. There are so many things in this game that if this was Pikmin 1 or 2, that would have fucking wiped out a huge amount of my Pikmin. And it just kinda doesn't in Pikmin 3. That just seems like the enemies, they have like a maximum number of Pikmin they're allowed to kill at once. And a lot of things that was very dangerous in previous Pikmin games have been tuned way down. Like electricity doesn't kill your Pikmin at all anymore, I don't think. It just kind of stuns them, which is like, really? You couldn't have at least made it like it fries them, and if you don't whistle, then they die? It's like, come on, man. You're just going way too far with trying to make this game easy. Maybe they're trying to respond to some criticisms that Pikmin 2 was way too punishing, but I thought the punishing element of Pikmin 2 was kind of cool. This is something that you could have played around with in the difficulty select. You could have made it that on higher difficulties, electricity will kill your Pikmin, but on the lower difficulties, it'll only stun them. You know, something like that. But playing on hard mode, no, I certainly did not find this game any kind of hard, which is unfortunate. Thankfully, the core Pikmin gameplay here is still solid enough that I can definitely see myself coming back to this game and just getting a lot out of trying to optimize my play and trying to beat the game in as few days as possible. Like I said, I beat the game 100% in 26 days. I don't know if that's a good time or a bad time, but I'm 100% certain that I could really shave that down if I played through the game again now that I know where things are and I know what to do. And I want to see how few days I can beat Pikmin 3 in and try to play it again and again and try to, you know, get that number down more and more. Like I said, I think Pikmin 3 does the time management stuff better than any other Pikmin game, and I definitely want to try to push myself to get as good at it as possible. Which now brings me over to the game's mission mode. I haven't talked about the side modes in the previous two Pikmin games. They had the challenge modes because I don't really like them, to be honest. In Pikmin 1, it was just kind of a score attack mode to see how many Pikmin you could grow in a limited amount of time, which is kind of cool, but I prefer to have more of like a concrete goal like you get in the main campaign. And in Pikmin 2, it used the caves, so just no fucking thanks on that. But here in Pikmin 3, the mission mode, it uses the same type of gameplay that you see in the side stories, where it's individual level-based and you'll have some kind of objective, either to collect all the treasure or kill all the enemies or whatever. And one thing I was very pleasantly surprised to discover is that the mission mode does not reuse the maps from the main campaign. It actually has its own maps built exclusively for this mode, which, oh, that's really cool. And even cooler than that, only in this mode you're gonna find purple and white Pikmin. Oh, really? I didn't know they were even in this game. That's cool. I like that. And just like the side stories, these play around with a lot of different cool variables. Sometimes you only have one captain, sometimes you have two, sometimes you have three, and they'll give you access to different types of Pikmin. Sometimes you're only going to have rock and purple Pikmin, and you have to complete a whole level using just those, which allows them to really get creative with the setups and what they allow you to and to not do in these. But the thing that I really like about mission mode is that they have a ranking system. This also applies to the side stories. You get medals when you complete them, and if you can complete the entire challenge, like if it's a treasure thing, if you get all the pieces of treasure, then you get a platinum medal, and immediately that makes me go, alright, time to platinum every single one of these missions. But I was really pleasantly surprised to find that these missions are fucking hard. Some of them, at least. Some of them I managed to do without too much issue, but some of them I could not get that platinum medal. The times are really strict, and I was trying a couple of these over and over and over, and I still have not managed to platinum all of them. which I think is awesome. Like, here it is, the moment that I've been waiting for in Pikmin, where they finally tried to push my time management and optimization skills to the limit and really ask me to master the game and its mechanics and its controls. And I am proving incapable of doing it. I'm not good enough, which I love. There's room for me to grow and get better here in Pikmin 3. And I was certainly not expecting this out of Pikmin 3 just because of how easy the game is, and also the side stories. Those are much more forgiving and much easier to complete and get those platinums than the mission mode. The mission mode, some of these are really fucking hard, and the levels are very complex. There is treasure all over the place. Sometimes there's not even an onion. You just have, like, scatterings of Pikmin placed all around, and you have to, like, do certain specific things to get access to different Pikmin types. So it's like, okay, I gotta send one of my captains over there so she can grab all the yellows, and meantime, I gotta go over here and grab the whites with that character, and then there's the rock Pikmin over there, so I need to throw one of my captains there to get the rocks, and you want to try to multitask all of this as efficiently as possible because that time is really strict. This mission mode kind of fucking owns, dude. I really love this. It's not as engaging as the bigger, grander, full experience you get from a proper Pikmin campaign, but it still manages to be super fun just due to how difficult it is to get platinums on some of these challenges. And there's a good amount of them too. You can definitely get quite a few hours trying to platinum every single mission. Also, a little fun thing they did is one of the challenge maps is a remake of one of the maps from Pikmin 1, which is cute, and it's fun going back to this level now using the system of Pikmin 3 and seeing how much more you can get done in the same amount of time compared to the first game. Makes me feel like if you could play all of Pikmin 1 in the Pikmin 3 system, the game would be like 45 minutes long or something, which would be kind of cool, actually. And yeah, some of the maps in mission mode are just reusing the same maps. Like, the first 5 of them just get reused for the second 5, and they're, like, remixed into harder versions, but I'm okay with that because they're just individual challenges. And I find this to be an infinitely better way to extend the playtime of a Pikmin game than what Pikmin 2 went with, because here I still feel like I'm playing Pikmin. So yeah, suffice it to say, I love Pikmin 3. I think this game is awesome. Truthfully, after playing it, I'm kind of wondering if Pikmin 4 is gonna be able to match this. Because, you know, I'm a little bit nervous about those caves being reintroduced, and also Pikmin 4 doesn't have the multiple captains anymore. Although that one I'm actually okay with, because I feel like Pikmin 3 has already done as much as you could possibly do with the multiple captain systems. You know, it would be kind of funny if they kept the trend going, and now you had 4 captains in Pikmin 4, but honestly, at that point, I think it's just superfluous. I think with the Go Here function and having 3 captains and everything that they've done in this game, there's really not much more you can get out of a multiple captain system that this game didn't already do. So I actually think it makes sense that Pikmin 4 is going for something a little bit different, going back down to just 1 captain, and now you have the dog that opens up some new gameplay possibilities. So I'm very excited to see what Pikmin 4 has to offer, but will it be able to match the glory of Pikmin 3? I guess only time will tell. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed. If you'd like to support me, you can check out my Patreon and Ko-fi in the description. I'll see you next time.